Hi folks, we're going to take a look at number 4 on page 97. So they give us the equation of this circle, and you should be able to recognize that this is a circle centered at 0, 0, because this is like x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared. So the center is 0, 0 and equal to 34. But remember that this number here represents the square of the radius. Okay, so we'll see if it's important to know the radius or not. So let's see what they're asking us to find here. They're asking us to determine whether these points are inside or outside of the circle. So let's draw a quick picture to see how this is going to work. Okay, so I've got my circle centered at 0, 0. Okay, so what's special about all the points on the circle? So remember that what's special about the points on the circle is they all have the same distance to the center, which in this case here is 0, 0. Okay, so whatever the radius is, it's the same on every point of this circle. So if a point is inside of the circle, well, it's going to have a distance to the center which is less than the radius, and if it's outside of the circle, it's going to have a distance to the center which is greater than the radius. Okay, so essentially what we have to do is we have to determine, is the distance to the center from these 2 points bigger or smaller than the radius of this circle. So we will have to determine the radius of the circle. So here, if r squared is 34, then r is going to be equal to the square root of 34. Okay, and if we want to get a sense, it's a lot easier if we approximate. So let's get square root of 34, so it'll be just under 6. So square root of 34, so that's about 5.83. Okay, so I'm going to use that to check here. Okay, so let me start by finding, let's call this B and let's call this E. So let's find the distance from the origin to point B. Okay, and so here, what's the distance formula? What's the square root of? Well, 4 minus 0 squared plus 4 minus 0 squared again. Okay, so what do we have? We have 4 squared 16 plus 16. So here we have the square root of 32. Okay, so actually we didn't even need to find an approximation for the radius. It's clear that this is less than the square root of 34. Okay, so that means that this point has to be inside of the circle. So therefore, 4, 4 is inside the circle. All right, now let's find the distance from the origin to point E. Okay, so again, what do we have? We have 2 minus 0 squared plus negative 6 minus 0 squared. So what does that give us? 2 squared is 4 plus negative 6 squared is 36, which is equal to the square root of 40. And this again is greater than the square root of 34, which is the radius of my circle. So therefore, point E, which is 2, negative 6, lies outside of the circle. All right, so let's just do a quick recap. So first of all, we had to determine what the center of this circle was, so we knew what we were finding the distance to when we were taking 0.44 or 0.2 negative 6. We needed to find the center of the circle. In this case here was easy, it was just 0, 0. And we needed the radius of the circle so that we can compare the distance from this point to the center and that point to the center to the length of the radius. And in this case here, the length, that distance was smaller than the radius, so the point was inside the circle. Here the length was, or the distance between those points was greater than the radius, hence it lied outside of the circle. Okay, that's it for this one.